At the end of August, Taiwanese citizens will vote in a referendum on whether to resume operation at the Maanshan Nuclear Power Plant. Now, this referendum was proposed by the opposition Taiwan People's Party months after the country decommissioned its final operating reactor. So why go back this soon? And is it a good option for the island nation? Well, to help us understand this complex issue, we welcome Professor Tsung-Kuang Yeh, Dean of the Nuclear Science College at National Tsing Hua University. And speaking to us from Brussels, we have Andrei Covatariu, a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council Global Energy Center. Andrei, so the questions Taiwanese voters will answer in the upcoming referendum is phrased like this, and I quote, "Do you agree that the Maanshan Nuclear Power Plant should resume operations provided it is deemed safe by the relevant authorities?" So what is implied here is that there will be a need for a comprehensive review, but according to Taiwanese law, referendum results are only valid for 2 years. So can you give us an idea of how complex that process may be and how long it may take?
Thank you very much for having me. So I think it's quite important to understand that assessing the viability of nuclear power plants and their potential continuation or extending a license is subject to both national and international organization. It is a very complex process that includes a lot of assessments, technical assessment, geographical assessment, and so on and so forth. So no nuclear power reactor existing or future one can function without this whole set of analysis. So that is a prerequisite of any nuclear reactor. Now, related to how long the referendum question will be, first of all, I think asking the population about this kind of topics is always a good check on whether or not there is social acceptance of that, of course. But the technicalities, I think, can actually pose some challenges going forward, because when it comes to the nuclear power sector, we know that the lead time and the time needed for this kind of assessment usually is quite long. So there might be issues deriving from the validity of these responses from the referendum.
So, Tsung-Kuang, what do you think? 2 years, can Taiwan make it, regardless of whether the vote succeeds or fails? I mean, well, if it succeeds, there is this time limit. So is it doable?
I think so. Because I think in Taiwan, if the referendum passed and we decide to restart this Maanshan nuclear power plant, of course, it would take time for safety inspection. That's for sure. But I don't agree with Andrei on the part of IAEA. We need safety inspection conducted by the local regulatory body, and that is Nuclear Safety Council in Taiwan. IAEA does not play any role in the restart of a nuclear power plant. So we have to rely upon the safety inspection by Nuclear Safety Council in Taiwan. And I personally think this safety evaluation or inspection would take 1 year. That's for sure. Okay, because these 2 units at Maanshan Nuclear Power Plant have been shut down. So you have to go through the whole set of safety inspection. That's for sure. And that would usually take 1 to 2 years. Now, why do I say it would take 1 year? Because these 2 units, especially Unit 2, has been shut down only for 2 months. Okay, so it doesn't really take long. It doesn't have to take long to do the safety inspection, but it may need more time for the safety inspection of Unit 1. But in total, I think 1 or 1.5 years should be enough for the entire safety inspection process. So then the reactor can be relicensed. Mm-hmm. I think this procedure of being relicensed is important because you still have to wait to obtain the fresh fuel. Okay, because we don't produce nuclear fuel by ourselves in Taiwan, so we have to purchase fresh fuel from overseas. And that would take, some people would say, well, it would take about 2 years to obtain this fresh fuel.
Let's put a pin in that because I do want to talk about it in just a second. But I saw Andrei, you wanted to jump in there?
I think it's very important to know that, once we had an existing facility, it's relatively easier to actually go through all the processes. But I just wanted to add a clarification on the international, let's say, organizations. And I think that's important for your viewers and for the voters for the referendum. What I meant was that the standards, the safety standards, are internationally agreed. So the National Commission will follow the guidelines, basically, that have been agreed internationally for decades. So in that sense, it is, ensured an international, let's say, standard in that regard. And I also think that it will help, and it helps the fact that the nuclear facility has been shut down recently, so it's not something that starts from scratch. A lot of the stages of the evaluation or relicensing are already there and can be checked, very quickly.
Before we go into concerns and some of the safety aspects of this situation, Tsung-Kuang, you've been advocating for using nuclear energy in Taiwan's energy mix in order to provide a baseload. How much baseload does Taiwan need in reality? Do you have a vague number in mind?
Oh, yeah. We need at least 65 to 70% of baseload electricity in Taiwan. Okay, so that's why we always say, like Andrei has said, you are not just developing renewable energy. You also need nuclear energy for you to reach the goal of net zero carbon emission by the year of 2050. So that's why we always say go green with nuclear. So we have to develop both renewable energy in Taiwan and also re-establish, or restart all the existing nuclear power plants. The good thing for us in Taiwan right now is no reactors have been actually physically decommissioned at this moment because of the fuel are still inside the reactor core. So all the major components are still there inside the nuclear power plant. So if we want to restart any units, of course, we have to go through the safety inspection, but it would take very long to complete the safety inspection. I think for Maanshan Nuclear Power Plant, it would take 1 to 1.5 years to complete the safety inspection. For Foshan Nuclear Power Plant, it would take 2 years. For Jinshan Nuclear Power Plant, it would take probably 2 to 3 years.
The need is definitely there. I completely agree. Let's talk about the challenges and the concerns that a lot of people may have. One is that Taiwan is a seismically active country, is a volcanic island, and the Maanshan plant in the south is actually located less than 1 kilometer from the active Hengchun geological fault. So what kind of safety standards and best international practices should be followed for a nuclear plant like that to be located so close to an active fault, Andrei?
I think that's a key question for any geography. So my home country of Romania is also a seismic, let's say, country, and we had quite powerful earthquakes, over our history, and that didn't stop, the government going ahead and planning actually to expand the nuclear power sector. So my point is that the assessment, the geological assessment, and all the assessment that I was speaking about a couple of minutes ago are so complex and so high standards that ensure that any incidents or any accidents, geological accidents that may happen, are not harming these facilities. And we have seen this track record across the world. We have seen many countries that face this kind of challenges that have been managing their nuclear fleets in that regard. So geographies matter quite a lot, and I think that is one of the key, let's say, assessments that the local authorities and but with the help and the guidance of the international experts will actually undertake in order to ensure that the relicensing of the nuclear power plant will be made in under safety conditions. But again, we have seen that, we have managed that across geographies over the last few decades, and with the exception of Fukushima, that was a terrible, let's say, a set of unfortunate events that led to that historical, say, tsunami. We have a good track record when it comes to this kind of facilities across the world.
Well, Tsung-Kuang, you mentioned fuel, and Taiwan is a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which means that it has to rely on the United States for its nuclear materials. Unlike with LNG, where it can, let's say, diversify its supply, buy from different people, in the case of nuclear fuel, it really has realistically only one choice. Do you not see it as a geopolitical risk? No matter how good the relations are, relying on one source seems a little risky to me. What do you think?
I also think it's risky, but we have no choice.
Right.
Okay, that's actually a very political decision by both governments. When I say both government, I mean Taiwan's government and also government of the United States. So we just have to take it. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
But
so,
if you give me a few seconds, I would like to talk about seismic impact.
Please.
Okay, I want to let everybody knows no actual major nuclear accident was actually caused by earthquakes. Okay, if you take a look at 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and Fukushima, none of these accidents were caused by purely earthquake. When we talk about Fukushima, that accident was actually caused by tsunami. Tsunami was caused by this earthquake. But right after the earthquake at the Fukushima Daiichi Nuclear Power Plant, the reactor was safely shut down. Okay, and the spare diesel power generator were running. So no problem at that time. And until the ingress of seawater because of tsunami. So if we want to maintain nuclear safety in Taiwan, I don't think the major point would be considering the impact of earthquake, because the anti-nuclear people are always saying you have to go for a higher standard. Even we have this anti-seismic capability of 0.72 G, they are still saying that's not enough. You have to go higher, for example, to 1.384 G. So I don't think that's fair, and I don't think that's the real problem we should have to take into account. We should really consider, if we are really concerned with the nuclear safety at Maanshan Nuclear Power Plant, we need to discuss what is the future impact of tsunami caused by major earthquake. And we actually, scholars in Taiwan have done all sorts of analysis, and we are pretty confident at this moment. Like situation like Fukushima nuclear power plants will not happen in Taiwan.
Okay, let's address one more concern that a lot of people have. Many consider nuclear energy a clean source because of its lower carbon footprint, but the problem of nuclear waste remains a significant challenge. We talked to Cui Shuxin, the co-founder of Green Citizens Action Alliance, who explained the current state of nuclear waste management in Taiwan. Take a listen.
所以为什么说核废无解？是因为在现有的跟物理跟化学的方法，你都没有办法解决它的这些高放射性的物质，你必须把它深埋在地底下，远离人类的生活圈。低阶核废料可能要几百年以上，那高阶核废料是从万年到10万年、100万年都有。各国是先去找有没有一个安全的地下可以储存的一个地方来去做选址，选址之后再向下挖掘。目前成功的只有芬兰。 那其他国家有的，要不然就是还没有找到明确的选址，要不然就是甚至是挖下去之后发现不行，就是你可能碰到一些断层的破碎带或地下水，你必须要放弃这个计划。那目前呢，台湾我们可以说很可惜的，我们还在很前面。我们的核废政策定了之后呢，其实我们只有定了低阶核废料的选址条例，但是高阶核废料的法律是还没有定的。那可是问题是，台湾连低阶核废料的选址，其实到现在呢，还是一个不受欢迎的地方。所以即使有法律，但到现在还没有一个县市愿意接受这个低阶核废料的放置。那高阶核废料因为无法可循，所以其实现在不管说是评估或选址，都还没有开始。
So, Tsung-Kuang, why is there a lack of regulation on high-level nuclear waste in Taiwan? Is it an issue of political will or public support or the technology required? What's happening there?
There's no problem with technology, but you need public support. And also, you need the government to do things efficiently. Now, this government, DPP, is, it is actually anti-nuclear. So there's no progress. You cannot do any site evaluation at this moment because there is no law for you to do it. So the next thing I want to say is final repository is not the only solution for especially high-level spent nuclear fuel. That's why all the other nuclear countries, they are not in a rush to establish a final disposal site because all these spent nuclear fuel, they are still fuels for example, for the new generation of nuclear reactor like molten salt reactor. This type of reactor can use all the spent fuel as its fuel and to produce more electricity. So at this moment, most nuclear countries around the world, they are storing all the spent fuel at the dry storage site. And that's exactly what we are doing here in Taiwan. So, for example, the dry storage site would have a license of 40 years for operation. So in this time range, we have sufficient time to wait for the progress, the development of this Gen 4 molten salt reactor to help us reduce the total volume of the spent fuel efficiently. Then at that moment, at that time, at the end of the life of the spent fuel, we then need a final disposal site. So just no rush. We intend to reuse all the spent fuel. We can wait until the new technology evolves. And the other new technology is called nuclear transmutation. And that's another way to deal with the long-lived spent fuel, the long-lived radioactive isotopes. Mm-hmm. So still in progress. I mean, another technology is still in progress. So why do we have to rush to the final disposal?
Oh, well, for many, I'm sure waiting for new technologies to use high-level spent nuclear fuel might seem like kicking the can down the road in hopes of like technology will save us. But before we finish for today, because we are running out of time, Andrei, I would like your take on what is happening in Europe in terms of disposal, kind of Finland versus other countries, and in general, kind of what are we going to see in the coming years, both in terms of disposal and reuse of this high-level spent nuclear fuel?
Let me try to address that a bit in principle, because to some extent, the revival or the appetite, the growing appetite that we see in Europe is also because the advantage that a nuclear power plant brings to the environmental, let's say, concerns. So it is an upside when it comes to CO2 emissions, and that is something that we need to address with a higher urgency, in my view, than the final disposal for the waste, as the professor was mentioning. So for Europe, 2050 neutrality goals are key at the moment. So in that regard, nuclear is supporting, because nuclear power is supporting these goals, because the operation phase of nuclear power plants is rather clean in that regard. So that is the upside that the nuclear power is bringing. On the challenging side, and I do agree, it is a challenge when we discuss about very long-term planning of that, and I understand the concern of people, but the urgency is a bit different. And I think technology, research and development will help in that regard going forward, but it is a challenge, and we need to acknowledge that, and technology policy can actually respond to this in the decades to come.
Well, let's hope that storage of nuclear waste will remain as safe as it has been to this point. Thank you both, gentlemen, for your time.